If you're thinking of selling between now and the first quarter of 2026, here are a few things you need to know. So if you remember back in March of this year, one of the things I said and that I predicted about the 2025 real estate market is that it will be uncertain. The administration wants rates to go down. The Fed wants to keep rates high. Nobody really knew what was going to happen. And I can tell you that as I sit here today, roughly September 1st of 2025, that's one of the most accurate predictions I've ever made. I have never seen in my 26 plus years more confusion and uncertainty in a real estate market than I see right now. Now listen, some of that has to do with media, social media, what to believe, what not to believe, and some of the headlines that are out there that may or may not be true. As I was putting together some data points for today's market update, I found some headlines, and Redfin's reporting that there's a record number of home sellers taking their homes off the market this year. They're reporting that there's 30% more buyers than sellers. Statistics show that housing demand is at a 30-year low. And locally, many agents, they're struggling, while there's other agents that are saying they're having a record year. Sellers think they can still get 2022 prices in just a few days, and buyers think they can get deep discounts on homes like we were getting in the 2010 market, 2011 market. Well, if you Google how's the real estate market in Minnesota right now, AI is going to tell you that it's characterized currently as it's been a cruel summer. What does that mean? Well, it's been a slow summer for a lot of home sellers and some good opportunities for a lot of home buyers. However, buyers have kind of tabled their enthusiasm for purchases right now, just due to the uncertainty in the economy, the uncertainty with tariffs, uncertainty with the Fed. Well, I can promise you one thing, that if our Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, doesn't reduce rates here on September 15th, he's going to mysteriously disappear, and you might want to look for him in a hole somewhere on Mar-a-Lago, because Trump has been so hard on the Fed to reduce interest rates to keep his economy humming along. As I mentioned before, this administration does not want to see a soft housing market. They understand the value of a strong housing market and what that does for the economy. So they're going to make every effort to make sure those rates do come down and make homeownership more affordable. Some of the national trends that I'm seeing right now, or that I'm hearing right now, is that prices are actually holding steady or softening in some areas. Now keep in mind, real estate is local. So I'll get into some data points here locally in just a minute, but nationally we're seeing some softening in a lot of markets, some increase in other markets, but overall we're seeing about a level home appreciation year over year, 24 to 25. Inventory is definitely building up. As I mentioned earlier this year, if they don't reduce interest rates and buyer demand softens, we're going to see inventory pick up, and I think that's been a good thing. Statistically, they say 6 months supply of inventory is the tipping point where it goes from a seller's market to a buyer's market. I would argue to say that it's more like a 3 to 4 months supply of inventory is where it tips from a seller's market to a buyer's market. And that's just kind of the new norm after we've come through the COVID market of 2 to 3 days was the average time on the market. And what I mean by that is we currently sit at about a 45-day supply of inventory here locally in my particular market. We're still in what's characterized as a seller's market. But as I dive deeper into some of the conversations and data points, you're going to see that some markets are buyer's markets and some markets are seller's markets, while some markets are balanced. Inventory, as I mentioned, locally has definitely generally increased. Sales are right now are actually to multi-decade lows in a lot of marketplaces right now. Mortgage rates, as I mentioned before, are staying high. They are starting to come down. There was some optimism based on a speech that Powell gave about a week ago, stating that he would start to give in to the softening of interest rates. Again, we'll see what happens here on September 15th, but I've never seen the consumer so in tune into what the Fed's going to do with interest rates ever in my career. And it's made it very clear that buyers are very interest rate driven and willing to be patient right now to see what's going to happen when it comes to interest rates. Right now, I can just tell you more than anything, I think buyers and sellers are frustrated because of this confusion, because of this lack of clarity. What I want to try to do is provide some clarity and cut through some of this confusion that you're seeing online, right? Oh, the market's great and I'm having a record year. And you'll see others say that the market's going to crash and you should wait. And as a buyer, there's going to be opportunity in the off season to buy homes on sale. Well, Unfortunately, the bad thing about social media is these folks have no credentials. They're not in the day-to-day real estate market. They don't understand, what's happening in the local market. And all I can do is give you my gut feeling on what my perspective is in my local real estate market and what I think the next 90 days will bring. Beyond the next 90 days, as I mentioned before, I don't think anybody can realistically predict or forecast what's going to happen in the local housing market. So as we start to wrap up Q3 and move into Q4, I'm seeing a little bit of optimism. And I say that because I actually listed 3 properties last week and went into those listings with my sellers saying, I really don't know what to expect. We're going to price it right. We're going to have it in great condition, and we're going to present your product in its best light to the marketplace. But frankly, I don't know, based on the volatility and the ups and downs we've seen in the marketplace, what's going to happen with your home. Well, I can tell you that all 3 of those listings went into multiple offers, and somebody has flipped the lights on locally here in the real estate market. Now, that average price point of those 3 listings was right around $500,000. I can tell you the first half of this year, the $1 million and up product was everything went into a bidding war. Those properties were getting multiple offers. We're seeing the Dow at an all-time record high, and I think a lot of people are pulling cash out of different assets and putting it into a more safe harbor like real estate. And that was happening the first half of this year. Now, as we've pivoted into the second half with the upper bracket or luxury market, we're seeing some of that soften a little bit. Why? I don't know. Maybe we took a year's worth of transactions and kind of crunched it into that first 6 months of the year. I do, however, think that we are going to see one more push of luxury home sales come late third quarter, early fourth quarter of this year. So as we move into third and fourth quarter, I think we're going to see rates start to soften. Again, if that doesn't happen, I think there's going to be a major change, a major blow up with the Fed. I do think that there's going to be opportunities in some price points. One of the products that has really struggled this year has been townhomes. And townhomes traditionally are under $500,000 in my marketplace. Well, that market has struggled this year due to high HOA fees. There's been some assessments in some of these townhomes due to hail damage and storm damage. And that buyer is very sensitive to interest rates and monthly payment. So that buyer really hasn't shown up this year. And we've seen that inventory pick up, and we've seen townhome sellers struggle a little bit. So I think that market will start to pick up as rates come down. The kind of middle of the market, maybe the $600,000 to $900,000 price point in my particular marketplace, that market will also start to pick up again as we see interest rates come down. Now, I think it remains to be seen what will happen with the upper bracket market, but I do think that there'll be some increase in sales and some uptick in real estate activity, generally speaking, across the board in my market. Now, if I just look at some of the data from the first half of this year and try to translate how that affects the second half of, or even the last quarter of 2025, I see that the average list to sale price has been about 100%. 23%, believe it or not, of homes being transacted, 23% of those buyers have waived their home inspection. That's still happening. And hear me out on this. I think the reason that's happening is there's still a lot of, and always will be, a lot of part-time agents in the industry. I'll just give you an example. I had a listing come on the market a couple of weeks ago. We ended up with only one showing the first day on the market. Well, that buyer's agent has sold a total of 3 homes this year and really isn't in tune with how soft the market has gotten the last 90 days. And they came in over ask with no inspection and an appraisal gap guarantee, and they were the only offer on the table. They didn't need to do any of that. And of course, myself and my sellers were elated, right? But if you're not in that market or in the local market day to day and you're not full time, you still have the taste of what was happening spring of this year, and that's just not what's happening today in most marketplaces. So waiving an inspection right now just isn't something you need to do, generally speaking. And if your agent's encouraging you to do that, I think it's a huge mistake, and I think you can still win. I know you can still win in a multiple offer situation without having to waive that home inspection. Now get this, the first half of this year, 50% of homes were sold for over asking price. So you're seeing the media report and a lot of these social media influencers report on how homes have gone on sale and there's opportunities for buyers. Well, the data shows that 50% of the homes sold for full price. So we're still seeing sellers get great prices for their homes, if they're priced right. It's so important in this marketplace to be priced right. It's such a price sensitive market. You're still going to get full price or over asking price or in bidding wars if you're priced right. But I see so many agents think that it's 2022 still and encouraging their sellers to list their home at a price that's just not attainable in this market. And that's where the 50% of the homes are sitting on the market and getting a lot less for their properties than those that are really in tune with what's happening in the market. And it's not, we can look at this data and this history all day long, but a lot of it's looking at your competition, what's currently available for sale, the absorption rate in your market, and really what your local real estate expert thinks is going to happen over the next 30 to 60 days in your market. And I'm loving this market. This market's a lot more like 2019 than it is like 2022, and it's becoming a pros market. You've really got to be able to be very price sensitive and price properly. You've got to be able to really prepare your home for the market. And there's a lot of value in staging your home right now and doing some of the little fixes to make sure that your home's ready for the market and really polishing your home to make it shine. And there's a ton of value in having an agent that knows how to negotiate right now. Not only negotiating through sales process, but listen, during the COVID pandemic, we didn't have to negotiate through inspection. And now a lot of these agents on the listing side they don't know how to do this. They don't understand that that's the second round of negotiations, and they're just hit upside the head when somebody decides to renegotiate or ask for compensation or a discount in price or something to be fixed after inspection. They have no idea what they're supposed to do about that. So I always feel like you should work with an agent that doesn't necessarily need a sale. And now that may sound wrong, but at the same time, hear me out. If you've got an agent that's desperate to earn a commission check, they're going to be a weaker negotiator on your property. 5 years ago, during the COVID pandemic, we saw somewhere between 75 and even 80% of homes, specifically upper bracket luxury homes, sell for cash. Today, that number has dwindled. It's less than 20% of buyers are paying cash for the homes. So what does that mean? Well, it's making sure that we structure a purchase agreement and a contract from a seller's perspective that protects you if financing falls through, if the appraisal comes in low. What does that all look like? So again, working with somebody that hasn't only experienced the COVID market is so important right now because we're back to what I love, and it's a normal market. This is not unusual. I can remember homes sitting on the market for 6 months to a year, specifically in the upper bracket, and we have to market them. We have to have patience, and we have to follow the trends and the data in the market to make sure that we strategically drop the price when necessary. So not a lot of agents understand that right now, and I'm really seeing a big gap between the professionals and the part-timers in this business right now. That gap was really close. And when all you had to do is put a sign in the yard and wait for offers to show up. You just can't have success in today's market without having some level of experience in a normal market and without having the ability to strategically price your home and negotiate your home on behalf of a buyer or seller. So as we continue to move into the fourth quarter of this year, there's going to be a lot of agents that are coming up with scripts and dialogues that trying to convince you that it's a great time to buy or it's a great time to sell and this is why or this isn't why. We're not in that market anymore of it's a great time to sell or it's a great time to buy. We are in a normal market. If it's a great time for you to buy or sell, then it's a great time to buy or sell. We are in a market where only real sellers are selling. Every single day we see about 20% of the homes reduce their price because they went to the market as a dreamer. They went kind of fishing without bait, so to speak. I'm sure, can you catch a fish without a bait on the hook? Absolutely you can, but the real sellers, the ones that are putting the bait on the hook, are the ones that are selling right now. So it's really important to really decide if now is the time for you to sell, and if so, be a real seller. Don't be a seller that's trying to make something happen in a market where it's not going to happen. We're just not in a market right now where you can put a price on your home and hope to get it because your neighbor got that 3 years ago. Just remember, every market is different. Every price point is different, every neighborhood is different, every city is different. In some cases, every street is different. So really make sure you're working with somebody that understands your local market. Now more than ever, working with a good, experienced local agent so that they understand how your product fits into that local market and those conditions in that local market. I'm seeing some properties sit for a long time in certain price points, and in other price points, I'm seeing properties sell in days. So understand that there is opportunity in this marketplace. The best advice I can give you right now is just meet with a good local expert. If you're thinking of selling this year or next spring, now is a great time to get together with somebody like myself to really understand when is going to be an opportune time to put your home on the market based on supply and demand and other factors, and B, the very best thing you can do right now is get some green grass photos taken if you're going to come on the market spring of next year. There's nothing better than seeing 10 homes come on the market that are under a deep white tundra of snow, and that one listing that just shines with green grass and blue skies. Be that one listing, meet with your agent now, and come up with a plan. We can't just prep your home in a weekend and have it on the market by Monday and hope it sells by Friday. We're not in that market anymore. If you're thinking of buying or selling this year, this is just a general outlook on what's happening in the real estate market. As I mentioned, every market is local. Reach out to me and we'll talk about your market.